right. Well, good morning. My name is John Wentz, and as was described, I apparently entered into a pit with the other small group directors, emerging victorious as the champion, pummeling my opponents, which were apparently also mostly women. At our other campuses, so I don't know what that means, but no. As a small group champion, what I get to do is I get to coach and encourage our small group directors at our other campuses, and it's a really fulfilling role that I get to contribute in here at Community, and it's always a pleasure to be here at Montgomery campus because I live right around the corner, just behind the movie theater and the Kendall 10 movie theater. So it's great to be right here in my own neighborhood, and excited to be here with you. Well, I thought I'd start by sharing a story of when I really felt like I was totally alive. And maybe you've had moments like this as well. But I remember it was about 15 years ago, and I was dating this girl at the time, and I had come to this place where while I was dating her, I came to the realization that I think it was time to take the next step in our relationship. And at the time, I was living in New Hampshire, and I was doing an internship, and she was living in Springfield, Illinois. And so I'm plotting all the different ways that I was going to propose to her. And I had all kinds of crazy ideas. And guys, sometimes our brains don't work, right? When we're in relationships, and you're building up this moment, like how am I gonna have the perfect proposal? And I had this one idea that I would propose to her because she worked on staff at a church. I'd propose to her in front of the entire church. And so I ran this whole idea past a couple of people, and they're like, dude, that's the dumbest idea ever. You should not do that. So I took their advice, and I came up with this other plan where we were going to drive out to this remote spot outside of Springfield where there was this covered bridge, and this would create the perfect environment. And so I remember I flew back, and I didn't tell her that I was going to come back, and I called her on my cell phone. And I was like, we were just talking, and then all of a sudden, I'm knocking at her door of her apartment, and she answered, and she's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here? And, totally surprised her. And then I was waiting for the perfect moment to just say, hey, we need to go out. I've got the afternoon plans, and I was just holding on to this moment, and I was actually just fighting back the temptation to just get it done with and get it over with. And I almost blew the entire moment. We were going out to dinner that night, and I was like, maybe I just couldn't hold it back. But I finally suppressed all of those urges, waited till the next day. We went out, and her best friend was actually getting married as well. So all three of us went to go look at wedding dresses the next morning. And so it was like the perfect setup. And we get out to this covered bridge, just Shannon and myself. And while we were out there, it was the perfect environment. The leaves were falling. It was late October. It was beautiful setting. I remember we had a little blanket set out on the grass. And up to that point in our relationship, we'd been dating about 7 months at the time. I had not told her that I loved her. And I remember reserving that moment. And I told her early on when we first started dating, I said, I won't tell you that I love you until I've decided that I want to marry you. And so when we got there, we're sitting on that blanket, and I remember telling her for the very first time, Shannon, I love you. And in that moment, I proposed, I got down on one knee, and, she was just like, oh my gosh, yes. And, after this moment, we felt so alive. And I remember, what's the first thing you do after, she says yes, or there's this moment when you get engaged? What do? You begin to do what? Well, yeah, you kiss. I mean, of course. You do that. Yes, thank you. You tell everybody, right? You can't keep that news to yourself. You go out and you tell everybody. And I just remember the rest of that day feeling like on cloud nine. She said yes. We wanted everybody to know. We had to get all the details together for our wedding and start making plans. And I just felt so alive. And there are probably moments in your life when things have come together and you feel like, man, this is living, like this is life. And maybe it's a time when you got a yes, that you got a new job. Or maybe as a student, I think of a time when maybe you made a team, or you made the band and you got first chair, or something great happened to you. Maybe it was at the birth of a child where you're just on cloud nine and you're like, yes, this is living. I think of Friday this past week, the first day of spring break. Oh, such a great time. When you're a kid, you're on spring break. And then as a parent, yesterday, an awesome moment where I said, this is living, where grandparents took our kids away for the weekend. This is living, right? Yeah, so we love our kids. But I tell you what, there are moments in life that are definitely worth living. And we can all think of those times. Well, we've been in a series now, and this is the final message in this series that we're calling Finding Your Way Back to God. When we talk about these different moments, when it's like we open our eyes and we have these awakening moments as we find our way back to God. And these aren't just one-time awakenings. These are awakenings that continue to happen as we journey as Christ followers. And so the first week we talked about kind of this first awakening. When we begin to awaken to the reality that there are these longings that God has placed inside of us. And we long for something deeper. We long for something more meaningful. And maybe we begin to question, there's got to be more to life than what I'm experiencing now. And we wake up and we realize that we have these longings and that God actually has placed these within us to help us find our way back to Him. And then there's a second awakening. And this is kind of a painful awakening, when we begin to awaken to the regret that we have in our life. When we realize that there are things, it seems like something is missing in our life, and we attempt to fulfill those longings, maybe in painful ways, and we do things to satisfy the longings, but it doesn't seem to work. And we go through what we call the sorry cycle, where we have a longing, we try to fulfill it on our own, and it doesn't work, and it just leads to a place of regret. But that there's this awakening is that there is a new start available for us. And we move into this third awakening, and we begin to realize that we can't do life on our own. That we can't fulfill the longings that God has placed within us. We can't find meaning in our life on our own, and we need help. We need other people. And that help comes in the form of Jesus. And we awaken to that reality. And last week, we talked about this awakening to the sense of love and how we realize that maybe we've heard it before, that God loves you, but it's almost become cliche, right? You see it written on an overpass or you hear this word, but you really awaken to the reality that God does love me. And His love for me is unconditional. And last week we got to see and celebrate in this awakening we're going to talk about today, this awakening to brand new life. Last week we saw all over community, 215 people at all of our locations who made the decision to be baptized and to celebrate this new life in being baptized. And actually, I want to show you just a quick recap of some of those moments, of those people that made the decision to be baptized. So I think we have some footage, actually, from all of our campuses. Here it is.
There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger said to his father,
Father, I want right now what's coming to me.
So he divided his property between them.
A few days later, this younger son packed all his belongings and took a trip to a distant land. And
where
there
he wasted all his money in wild living. He had spent everything. When a bad famine spread through that whole land, soon he had nothing to eat.
He was hungry and needed money, so he went and got a job with one of the people who lived there. The man sent him to the fields to feed pigs.
He would have been glad to eat what the pigs were eating, but no one gave him a thing. Finally,
when he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare?
And here I am starving to death. I'm going back to my father. I'll say to him, Father, I've sinned against God. I've sinned before you.
I am no longer worthy to be called your son.
Let me be like one of your hired workers." So he left and he went to his father. While the son was still a long way off, his father saw him. He felt sorry for him.
His father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son,
So he ran to
threw
him
his
and
arms
hugged him
around
and
him
kissed
and kissed him.
The son said, Father, I have sinned against God and have done wrong to you. I am no
I
longer
don't
worthy
deserve to be
called
called your son ever again.
But the father said to his
But the
servants,
father wasn't listening. He was calling to the servants, Quick, bring a clean set of clothes and dress him. Put the family ring on his finger and sandals on his feet.
Get the best calf and prepare it
Bring the
so we
fattened
can
calf
eat and
kill
celebrate.
it. Let's have a feast and celebrate.
This son of mine was dead, but
The
has
son
now
of
come
mine
back
was
to
dead
life.
and has returned to life. He was lost and is found.
He was lost
So the party
and is
began.
found.
Given up for lost
So
and
they
now
began
found.
to celebrate.
And they began to have a wonderful time.
Man, that is awesome, isn't it? I mean, I love moments like that. And I remember last weekend, it was just so fulfilling to be able to celebrate with people in those moments. I remember back to the original day when I was baptized nearly 20 years ago. I was fresh out of high school. I did not grow up going to church. And I remember it was Super Bowl Sunday in 1996. And I remember in a church about this size, I remember it just seemed like the minister just kept talking about baptism throughout his message. And I just knew inside, okay, this is a step that I need to take. I need to move from death to life. And I remember walking down, we would do this invitation song every week. And during that moment, you could come and sit in the front row and make that decision to be baptized. So I made that trek down the center aisle, sat in the front row, and I told Tim, who was the minister, I'm like, okay, I want to get baptized today. And he looked at me and he was like, well, that's great, but we're going to have to do it next week because the heater in our baptistry is broken. And there's a little bit of ice in there. And I was like, well, and I was like, I just walked down here. You know, I want to get baptized today. I'm like, the Jordan River was cold, wasn't it? And he's like, okay, Iron Man, here's the deal. I have to go in there with you. And I was like, well, suck it up, Pastor, let's go, you know? And so he's like, all right, fine, you want to do this? And so I remember, you know, going backstage during the communion time, getting ready for this, and we walked down into the water, and he had on these big hip waders, so he was like insulated. And I went down in shorts, and it was cold. And I remember, you know, he's saying all these words. I'm like, would you just speed this up? I've already made the decision, you know? And he's like, you know, I've now baptized you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit for the forgiveness of your sins, that you may be filled with the Holy Spirit. I remember him plunging me down into the water. And when I came out, I mean, it was like, took my breath away. Just like, mostly because there was ice in the water. And, you know, but at that moment, you know, that was awakening to life. And I remember it was such a beautiful moment about just a few years ago. I was in Springfield. We had started a campus for a church there in Springfield. And probably the most meaningful baptism I've ever been a part of was when I had the chance to baptize my mom. She actually moved from Missouri to Springfield, got involved in our church. And I remember having the conversation with her about her life, and she had come to this place where she wanted to be baptized. And I remember standing there and having this moment where she had brought me into this world. And then I had an opportunity to celebrate in her coming to new life. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. Well, the prayer of this fifth awakening is, God, if you are real, make yourself real to me. Awaken in me the confidence that I can live a brand new life. All right, I want you to hold on to that prayer. And this week, maybe this will become your prayer. Give me the confidence that I can live a brand new life. Now, Jesus came so that we could experience this new life. And he says this, and it's recorded in John 10:10, I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. Now, some translations will say, I've come that you may have a rich and satisfying life. I've come that you may have abundant life. Whenever I hear those words, I always think of the word more, right? When you think of abundance, we tend to think of more. To have an abundant life, maybe that means more money in the bank account, more satisfaction in all of our relationships, more vacations at the beach. Oh, that'd be nice, right? And I'm not talking about the Fox River Beach, like, you know. But as a culture, we think of more when it comes to abundance. But in the original language, when Jesus talks about life, there's actually two different words that are used for life. There's the word bios, which talks about, it's the root word for biology, and it talks about just kind of natural life. And that in a natural life, there are moments that we all experience, right? The average life, there's 250,000 hours of sleep. The average life, 76,000 meals. That's a lot of meals. 200,000 trips to the bathroom in an average bios life, right? And sometimes it just feels like we're going through life, but it doesn't always feel like life is going through us. We're just kind of coasting through life. And then there's another word for life in the Bible. It's one of my favorite words. It's the word Zoe. And in Zoe life, it includes this kind of natural life, but it also talks about a deeper part to life. And maybe you've seen people, maybe you've met people where they've got a lot of abundance kind of above the surface. They do have maybe a lot of money, a lot of vacations, a lot of things that you can see visibly. But it also seems like maybe there's something below the surface. There's a deeper aspect to them that's very meaningful, that's not easily shaken. And it's this sense of Zoe life that is present, that comes from having a relationship with God. It means that in difficult times, they're not always moved. They're not shaken when those times come. When Jesus says, I have come that you may have life, the word that he uses for life is, which one do you think, bios or Zoe? Zoe. He's talking about not having abundance life above the surface, but having an abundant life that starts below the surface and fills up everything else. And so life takes on a deeper, more meaningful life when we accept life the way Jesus wants us to have it. Now, throughout this series, we've been looking at the story of what we call the prodigal son or the lost son. And in this story, there's a verse that says the father took his life and he divided it between them. Now, this word property, you can see it here. I think we'll pull it up. It says, there was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. And so he divided his property between them. That word property is actually the word bios. He divided his life, his visible possessions and everything that he had, his natural life, and he divided it up. And he gave his inheritance then to his son. But it's almost like he's saying, look, you can have the bios life. But eventually there's going to come a time when you're going to long for the Zoe life. You're going to long for something that's deeper and more meaningful. And God doesn't want us to just settle for the bios lifestyle, right? And to have everything that everybody else can see. He wants us to yearn and to long for the Zoe life. And we all have ideas of what that Zoe lifestyle might look like. And the Father invites us to live that. And I want to talk about three specific experiences that we have when we really begin to cultivate that Zoe life within us. Now, right before Jesus tells this story of the lost son, he actually tells two stories right before it. The first story is about a man who had 100 sheep, and one of those sheep went missing. And he goes and he looks for that one lost sheep. And when he finds it, he calls his friends and his neighbors together, and he says, rejoice with me, I have found my sheep. All right, so that's the first story. Then there's a second story where there's this woman who loses an incredibly valuable coin. All right, and she looks for it. She eventually finds this coin. She calls her friends and her neighbors together, and she says, rejoice with me, I found the coin. All right, and then comes this third story, the story of the lost son. And when the son finally comes home, the father runs to him and welcomes him. And then he has this announcement, call everybody together. It's time to feast and celebrate because my lost son is now found. And so they begin to have a big party. So there's one thing that these three stories all have in common. What is it? There is a celebration. There is a party around what was lost now being found. And the news goes out. They tell everybody because when this happens, we can't keep the news to ourselves. We've got to share it with everybody because this is a celebration of life that is taking place. So if you found your way back to God, you have something to celebrate. You've got something worth living for. Now, we all know that initial moment, right? When we find our way back to God, maybe when we're baptized, we come out, we're like, oh man, we're supercharged. But those are just moments. And sometimes it seems like after that, in maybe our relationship with God, things just tend to settle into a monotonous type of lifestyle. And so it doesn't matter how long you've been a Christ follower, having this awakening to life needs to be a regular thing that we do. And that's why we come and we begin to celebrate. And so we need to learn to celebrate more in our life. I remember my mom, after she was baptized, she began to talk about how the songs that we would sing in church took on whole new meaning. The words and the songs took on a new life. And she's like, I never used to sing the songs. I used to just kind of read them and just I wanted to get through that part of church. And she's like, after I was baptized, I began to experience new life. Those words became a way that I would connect with God. I would begin to sing those words to God and really begin to celebrate. Well, in Psalm 149:4, it says this, the Lord takes delight in his people. Did you know that God loves to spend time with us? I mean, he absolutely loves it. I think of times when my kids, my oldest is now 13, and I've got a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, when they want to spend time with me. It is such a meaningful experience as a father to be able to enjoy my kids and not just, harp on them to get their stuff done. But they're like, hey, can we go talk or can we go hang out? Dad, can you come out and shoot baskets? I love that invitation to be able to spend time with my kids. And I think in the same way, God loves to spend time with us as well. So whether it's celebrating with a lot of people here, right, in church, or it's time alone with God, that experience of celebrating is so important in how we begin to cultivate that Zoe lifestyle. Now, the second way that we do that is by connecting with other people. Now, this is really what my whole role at Community is about, is helping people connect into small groups. And so, how many of you, just out of curiosity, are in a small group or have been in a small group in the past year? All right? Go ahead and look around. Go ahead and look around. This is really interesting. There are a lot of you that are connected. If you're not in a small group and you want to connect, talk to those people that had their hand up and look around and be like, oh, they're not so weird. I could probably do this. I could take a step of faith and maybe hang out with them. And I can tell you that some of the most meaningful experiences in my Christian walk have been when I've been able to connect with other people. We started doing this thing called the Alpha Course at the Yellow Box a couple years ago. And actually, the Alpha Course is going to start here. Aaron McCroskey, they're going to be kicking off the Alpha Course in early May. So I think the first Tuesday in May. If you want to check this out, it'd be a great experience to connect with some other people. But I think of a friend of mine named Victoria. And Victoria was an ardent atheist. She wanted to have nothing to do with God. And so when we started this thing called the Alpha Course, it was really an experience where people could come and have a meal and then hear a short teaching about one of the basic aspects of Christianity. And then after that, we break up into groups, and then the small group leaders just listen to the guests. And they say, okay, we want to hear what you believe. We want to know where you're at. And for many people, that's the first time they've ever connected with Christians, where Christians have actually listened to them and not just talked to them. And so my friend Victoria, she came to church, but you could tell it was like fingernails on a chalkboard every week. She was just uncomfortable. She didn't want to be there. And she heard about the Alpha Course, and her husband was like, come on, Victoria, you gotta check this out. You gotta try it. And so she came, and I remember the first couple weeks I was there at the course. And during that small group discussion time, I was like, all right, hey, we want to hear from you now. What do you think? And she couldn't even sit in her chair. She'd stand up and she'd be like, look, I don't believe any of this. I think you guys are all full of crap. I don't want to have anything to do with church. And we're like, "Oh, that's awesome. Tell us more." And she's like, "What do you mean? I just said you're full of crap." She didn't want to connect at first, but then week after week, she began to experience the power of actual meaningful relationships, people that really cared for her. And she went on the retreat as part of the Alpha experience and just had an incredibly meaningful time connecting with other people. And now, Victoria, just a few weeks ago, got baptized herself, took that step to follow Christ, and she attributes it to connecting with other people. She's like, I realized that there were other people that had something deeper in their life that I was missing. And she was able to cultivate that Zoe life through doing that. And now what's beautiful is she's actually doing a third step that we would say is contributing. She's actually helping with our Alpha course now. She takes care of all the meals. And so she's on our Alpha team. She and her husband, they coordinate all the meals for our 10-week course, which is probably one of the more important roles to play on the team. And she gets to now create this environment where other people can find their way back to God. And it's been absolutely phenomenal. And we're seeing about half the people who come through Alpha are finding their way back to God because they're getting a chance to celebrate, they're getting a chance to connect with other people, and they're really experiencing the beauty of this Zoe life. When we contribute and when we begin to help other people find their way back to God, we get to contribute to God's dream for the world. I think of a guy named Lane, and this final story I just kind of want to wrap things up with. Lane was a guy that about 8 years ago, Dave Ferguson met with, and Dave went to his house because Lane was dying. And Lane, his backstory was that he was a professional guy, just a type A, very driven professional, an executive guy who worked early in the morning, wake up at 5 a.m. and work late into the night, and actually grew his company to $1 billion. Just absolutely, it was a $100 million business, and he grew it to a $9 billion business. So he was incredibly successful. But then he got sick and had a terminal illness. And so he invited Dave to his living room to plan out his funeral because the doctors had told him that he only had a short amount of time to live. And as they were sitting there, Dave remembered the time when Lane actually found his way back to God. And, Lane had grown up in a family where they believed in God, but it was kind of just like going through life and not having life go through you. And it was that type of a life. He wasn't really experiencing the Zoe life. And so as his parents took him to church and he grew up, that was his lifestyle. And he says that this illness was his wake-up call. Out of the bios life and into the Zoe life. And he said he would actually trade all of his success as a businessman for this new life that he has now. This new life that has already begun in him. And so here's a word from Lane. He shares in his own words of how God has given him a new purpose and new direction for his life.
I know life is but a moment in God's eternity, and that's why it's important for us to take each day and make the most of it. Each of us has friends that are dealing with problems, whether they be divorce, financial problems, children's problems, you name it, they've got it. If we pray to God and ask Him to help us become messengers for Him, by giving us the right words to say or write and reach out to people, we can help them find their way back to God. My plan is to do this every day for the rest of my life, till the day I die. It is the most important thing. For years, I thought I had things good, but I knew I was missing something, and that was a personal relationship with God. And once I found it, I knew it was important for me to share it with others and try to help them find their way back to God.
Here's the thing about Lane. He's still alive. 8 years later, he's still, he's found new purpose for his life. God has not delivered him from the pain that he experienced in his terminal illness. He actually, every day, 16 hours of his waking day, he lives with incredible, intense, chronic pain. But as you heard from him, he has a new, deeper more meaningful part of his life, and it's in helping other people find their way back to God. And I think the beautiful part of this Zoe life is that when we take hold of it, it begins now. Our eternal life isn't something that will start in the future. It's something that actually is available to us now, and we can begin to live our eternal life now. That's the Zoe life. And when we do that, and when we begin to help restore God's dream for the world, and when we get to experience God using us to be a part of what he's doing in the world, that's really life. That is when we really begin to experience a life that is worth living. So I want to invite you, if that is you, and you're having this awakening to life, that there is more, I want you to pray this prayer. God, if you're real, make yourself real to me and give me the confidence that I need, that I can live a brand new life. Would you pray with me? God, it is so easy for us to spend our time and to spend our days just going through life. But we want your life to go through us. And we want to be a part of what you're doing in this world. And so, God, awaken within us this confidence that we can live a brand new life, and we accept it, that it comes through your Son, Jesus, in whose name we pray. Amen.